is my pleasure to now introduce our two guests today. So first we have Apostolis Karabaidis. You are one of the organizers of the Thessaloniki Pride this year, which will host the EuroPride. So welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Hello.
And Yanis Papagiannopoulos. You are the editor of the Antivirus, which is the leading LGBTQI plus media in Greece. And you're also the president of ELMA. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here.
So our first question today would be, what was your most impactful moment during the last 5 years regarding LGBTQI plus rights?
Go first.
Yes, I can think of. I can't say that I have already thought about it, but since we are having EuroPride and the impact that it has played all these years, although it's more than five, because we had awarded the title for 7 years ago for 2020, so it goes well beyond it. But I think in order to stick to the substance of the question, um, the uh, the stakeholders and all the partnerships that we gathered for this great cause and the momentum that it has created for the LGBTI community in terms of social acceptance, in terms of institutional reform. I think this is what I believe the biggest uh, impact that we had as an organization. And I'm bringing now my experience, my personal experience. This is what changed the heart and mind of my mother, because she realized that what we do, this is something really great, and from being a person that was reserved and she was somehow concerned about what we have been doing so far, she changed and said, whatever you do, I wish you from the bottom of my heart to be successful and impactful. So I believe that this happened to many families out there, and this is what we are proud of.
Thank you. So I'll also answer on from two different aspects. I think as a Greek citizen in the last 5 years, I was really emotional and kind of proud, and at the same time angry, when marriage equality was voted in Greece 2 months ago. Actually, might be exactly 2 months ago-ish. Uh, which, okay, as a Greek LGBTQI plus activist, is something that we've been fighting for the last 20 years. So yeah, this was a very nice moment, but at the same time, it actually made me angry because we only managed it in 2024 from one hand, and the other hand is that even at the time when this was being voted in the parliament, we could hear, hate speech in the parliament against LGBTQI plus people. So that's one part, let's say the more national part. On the international level, obviously for me, the most important part is that ILMA was created 2 years ago, which was an idea that we had with many friends and colleagues around Europe who also own media, that we don't have an organization in order to work together or, exchange best practices, be in touch. And after all that time, having antivirus, which was, I think, 21 years this April, at last we have an international, a European organization with media. I think we now have more than 15 members already. So I'm kind of happy and proud about this.
Thank you. So in this first part, we'll talk about the situation in Greece and the EuroPride. But first, you mentioned marriage equality that was just adopted. How do you see the trajectory of your country in terms of LGBTIQ plus rights over the last years and how it's been moving forward? Are you optimistic about the situation? Do you feel, as you said, that there is still a lot of barriers that need to be removed? And if the law is advancing, how are the minds and hearts of people, as you said?
Um, I'll go first. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Uh, okay, so uh, since 2015, I think it's a very important date because uh, since then there have been many legislations introduced and voted in the Greek Parliament. First, it was the civil, not civil, how do you go? Civil partnership
Mhm.
in 2015. Then in 2017, I think the whole procedure for trans people
Mhm.
to be recognized at their gender is was also introduced. I think it was 2017. I think, yeah. And then also the recognition of the rights of intersex people quite recently. Um, Also, I think we had the law introduced in when was it, 2018, against anti-hate speech.
Inter for intersex, it was 2022.
Yeah,
And it's
anti-hate speech had the protection of.
There were several waves. I don't know which one.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So we also had that, but I'm building it up. So and now with the marriage equality, it's been a good 10 years in terms of legislation.
Mhm.
Okay. So this is positive. But we keep that. We're happy for that, but let's take this out for now. As I said before, uh, even though through the different waves that we have for to, let's say, tackle hate speech, laws are are there and are very helpful when they are actually working
Mhm.
for us. Um, So several of those are either very difficult to enforce from one side, and also they are not so. Let's say, let me think. For example, the many trans people do not have the money or the energy to start the legal procedure to change their documents.
Mhm.
So the law is there.
Yeah.
Still,
The
it's
access,
the
yeah,
access to the law
it's
is,
complicated.
let's say, complicated. It also creates a more, let's say, uh, privileged
Mhm.
audience that can actually exercise the law, and other people cannot exercise it. And I think the issue of privilege is important to bring it along with equity, because you have to introduce laws and at the same time have in mind for those laws to be able to reach all of the society in order to at least be helpful, especially for the parts of our community which are underrepresented or not so privileged as
Mhm.
others.
Yeah.
This is an eternal discussion because on the one hand we have the practical process, how we communicate and how the legislators communicate the reform to the constituency. And we understand that, change comes in a slow pace, or this is the approach that in Greece we have
The narrative.
adopted. Yes. Pardon. But then this is when I get this, be patient, change cannot come overnight. My answer is that, in the long term, we are all dead. I mean, why, if we need equality now? Because if we wait for some years, then all these years are wasted. We need to get married now, not when our partner passes away. We need to be able to um, take decisions about our partners when they are in the hospital, not when they are out. We need to be able to exercise custody of our child now and not when they are grown up.
Mhm.
And it's all this time that we have been waiting for change to come is wasted time. And this is reflecting on what Yanni said. This is um, it doesn't come because many reform is halfway, and we have been pushing as activists for more change. We are halfway there. We also always criticize the lawmakers that we need to have complete equality, not partial. It's a debate whether we need to uh, demand equality for all and not leave anyone behind, or should we start with baby steps and solid moves forward?
And also, just to follow up on that, it's again what Apostolis is here, but we are hearing also from politicians. It's kind of the exercise of privilege at its best when they say like, okay, you have to be patient and everything. It's like, yeah, it's our community that it's dying or being murdered or living in poverty or not being able to find a house or a job. So it's easy for you to say, but not for us. And that's an important part. And I think it's exactly where the discussion is taking. Okay, it's obviously having something instead of nothing is is good, but it's not what we are fighting for. Okay, so these are two different conversations here.
And in this context, so Thessaloniki is welcoming EuroPride this year. It was supposed, as you said, to happen in 2020, but it was moved because of COVID. So, are you happy first that it's finally coming to Greece? And can you tell us what you see as the impact also in the rights of LGBTIQ plus people in the dialogue you can have with politicians or with society in general?
We are making fun that we are the city that has held the title of EuroPride for the most years because we won it back in 2017. Yes, and actually it served its goal. It delivered ever since we won that title because it somehow um, brought Thessaloniki in Greece to the international attention, and our policymakers and the LGBTI community felt that it's under the international focus, so we need to deliver, we need to increase our capacity, we need to um, go on with reform. So, at first place, this EuroPride as a tool has served its goal ever since. I think that we could have made more of it. It's a question of how we manage it. We still believe that it was a spark and an initiator of reform, and part of it, I think, is reflected in the recent marriage equality law. I think that they had the pressure to have marriage equality before EuroPride. So even that is something that we can be proud of, that we can boast that EuroPride
Enhanced
worked.
it.
Yes, apparently. And then I wouldn't take out the regional dimension, and because it was very important from the very beginning, because the Balkan region, Southeast Europe, is has connotations of being backwards in terms of progress in LGBTI acceptance, and it's a very homophobic region. And Greece and Thessaloniki, because it's directly connected with the Balkan inland, can act as like bright example of an oasis of tolerance. It was much more the case back then, back in 2020. Now we are happy that the whole region has made steps forward, and we want to boost the confidence of people living in that corner of Europe that yes, we can create success stories. Yes, we can be at the forefront. And this is half the way. Uh, Being self-confident is half the way to achieve success and reform. And I always say that the LGBTI movement across the Balkans has shown very bright examples of regional cooperation when our respective nations often are at loggerheads because of these nationalist, I don't know, disagreements. We cooperate very much, and I want to give you an example. The Macedonian naming dispute was dragged for very long, and the Greeks fiercely uh, were against any um, Macedonians being called the way they wanted. So, because we advocate for trans people's right of self-identification at the level of gender, we cannot deny it at the level of nations. So, we see how these things are interconnected, and we can move forward for reconciliation and regional cooperation.
And still talking about Pride, often when we see a Pride event, one community is pushed to the forefront, which are gay cis men and white men. Is there prospect to push maybe other people from the community to the front and also show that visibility?
But actually, I can start with the media and also with Pride. What you say is sadly true. Um Generally, I think the issue of privilege and understanding is very prominent in our communities, and I believe that it's something that we really have to work on. General intersectionality as well. Um, so I think the aim here is to first, being a cis white gay man, is to first recognize privilege, and then, especially when it comes to prides or to what we're going to have and people who are going to work in the media, I'll just be kind about it, although that's a bit clashing with what I'm doing at the moment. Shut the fuck up, myself. Because it's not only, I've seen tries of, we are trying to show that we are more inclusive. But I don't think that's the right course of action. We don't just have to show that we are more inclusive. We really have to understand and create the conditions in order to really be more inclusive. And that can only happen if, by understanding our privilege, we take many steps back and give space to the other segments of our communities, and have faith in that. I have complete faith in that this is going to work. And I think this is the next big step that we have to do as communities.
I think this is issue number one, and this is what we have to fight for, because we get very often we get the reaction that why are you complaining? You have the acceptance and of the whole society, and they think about when they say that, they think about same-sex relations, usually having like
The white gay men.
yeah, or very feminine lesbians, which are, easily digestible as an image. But when you bring about the trans issue, um, generally the gender issues, then you have immediately a bigger reservation. And that's why I think Pride is important, because we anyway get this massive support, and we can have our messages across and cover, and that's why we have a huge responsibility to be inclusive and touch upon other issues and not leave anyone behind.
And what what I wanted to add on that is in Ilma, for example. Uh, okay, I've been working with LGBTQI media for the last 21 years, and when I say LGBTQI media plus, I mostly mean gay media because I think 80% of the media that are existing in Europe, the main audience is gay men. Um, so that's again an example of privilege, and I think it's one of our aims in Ilma to try and evolve as media and also create those conditions for other media to emerge. Uh, Not so mainstream, not uh, uh, white gay men oriented with I don't know, underwear and biceps and although but also to be totally honest, it's a process that it has already started and is being understandable by most people who I know that have media, because it's this point that the societies, the LGBTQI plus societies, are already going there. So, on the other hand, if the media won't follow, they will cease to exist because it will be of no concern to anyone. So this is a positive thought.
I can track the same process in the politics because the politics have been a very serious domain, let's say, realm, and touching upon like until 12 years ago, touching upon the issues of sexual orientation and gender identity, they thought that it was very improper. And then uh, to boast about the change that Thessaloniki brought, we had the first mayor back then when we started in 2012, who was a politician, but not a special one, I would say.
Not a very traditional one, yeah.
Yeah, very out of the box, and and until then, the politicians were like, okay, we support you, but we cannot go further because we are afraid of the political cost. And he went forward. He didn't. Uh, uh, he didn't have any concerns about any political cost, and it turned out that he had not only gained, but his popularity grew further. And after that, all the politicians followed. And my point is that in this field, the society was forward, and then the politicians followed. I think it's the same trend with media, because it's important to have for the social movement, for the civil society to lead the way and make others follow. This is our
Yeah, but the thing with media is that I'm talking about LGBTQI plus media, so it would be our responsibility to have already understood it.
Yeah.
Not understanding it now.
So to conclude this first part, I guess we are all invited to join EuroPride Thessaloniki at the end of June, so 21st, 29th June.
and the big parade is on the last day. The peak is Saturday, 29th of June. We are very proud of having a very nice route all the way through the historical city center and the iconic waterfront. We want to have the concept of EuroPride is a big celebration for the city and its visitors, that to cover all tastes, ages, interests, and of course, it's an open invitation for the whole Europe, for the whole world.
So our podcast usually specifies around the EU elections. So we also wanted to talk about that with you. So what do you think LGBTQI plus people expect from the EU in Greece, if they expect anything?
Having raising awareness of what the EU does is at first place an issue because we have to enhance the knowledge of people of what EU does and in which way they can improve their lives, and this is what we want uh, to focus on during EuroPride to enhance this European element and um, inform people and educate people of how this is part of your everyday life and the principles of inclusion, equality, diversity is very much interconnected. I don't know if most of the young people know, but there is so much space of improvement, not only ahead of these European elections in general. Uh, Traditionally, Greece has not been very Eurosceptical, but after the recent or not so recent crisis anymore, um, EU and the European institutions was the easy target. So there has been some growing Euroscepticism in Greece. So we need to overturn this trend, and part of our campaign, and this is part of our campaign.
Yeah, I'd want to add to that only that on a social consciousness level, I'd say maybe there is something which has been helpful, like okay, if this is, let's say, the guideline from Europe, or if other European countries do it, we can't be uncivilized and not follow that example. So I think that on a social level has helped in the acceptance of LGBTQI plus rights. And on the political level, something similar as well. It's like there is a pressure from the EU in order to be, let's say, equally European, uh, to incorporate laws that would actually help and introduce LGBTQI plus equality policies. So also from these two aspects, it has helped quite a lot.
So
I think it's a function that takes place everywhere in Europe. It's how we um, understand ourselves. If we are our European self, then we have to do these steps, and it has acted as a major incentive for reform.
True, but at the same time, I think we must remember that Greece is also, let's say, we also kind of consider ourselves a bit in the east and then a bit in the west, because we are just, on the southeastern part, the most southeastern part of Europe, and historically also and culturally we have, I think, aspects of east and west. But what Apostolis said also about Euroscepticism, especially in the last few years, is true. And this might actually, in the sense that I said before, work against us in the future if there is Euroscepticism. Say if we move, let's say, more to a more Eastern approach, at least regarding LGBTQI plus rights, that's what we're talking about, nothing else. This might not be very helpful.
So as you talked about the European pressure in the QueerYourEU report that Forbidden Colors has published, we have looked at how members of European Parliament have voted from all countries on 9 key texts that were voted in the European Parliament in the last 5 years. And in our ranking of the member states based on the votes of their MEPs, Greece appear on 18th position, so more in the second part,
below the average,
just below the average. So we see that most of your MEPs are voting in favor of the text, but we have a proportion of MEPs that vote only against or mainly against. How do you reflect on this positioning, and maybe how do you see the upcoming European elections? And do you think it will change for the better, or it might change for the worse?
I think a major achievement of I think we have to give credits to also the civil society organization here, is that we have managed to spread these issues all across the so-called, we call it the democratic spectrum. We have, and this is the parties of the democratic spectrum were those that, voted in favor of the marriage equality bill, for example. And it's a rare case of cross-party cooperation, because usually, because we have this, always, it's
Politics, yeah.
it's a single party
Mhm.
government always. So normally every bill is voted only by the ruling party MPs. In this rare occasion, we see a cooperation cross-party from the democratic spectrum. We exclude the far-right parties and the communists that, communists in Greece are Stalinists, so they are always opting out in our issues.
I guess
So,
also there.
yes, yes.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly.
I can imagine.
Yes, that's what we see.
I would, because as I said, all of the mainstream parties are nominally at least, or declaratively are in favor. I would expect a higher position of Greece. The true issues that we have to work with the politicians are whether they mean what they understand, whether support for equality is not only nominal but substantial. Because
Mhm.
we have when we talk, it's very common to get an approach that, yes, I do support you, but okay, don't be so radical. Don't expect like everything to, yes, it's um, and it's not only in the political sphere, it's everywhere in all stakeholders that we work with.
Yeah, I'd say that's okay. That would be something that I would expect. I mean, yeah, it reflects kind of well the political reality in Greece, given the far right and also the Communist Party that they are also active in the European Parliament. So this would be something that I would expect. Yeah. And we can boast that we are above France.
France is one of the biggest surprise.
Yeah, then.
It shows, I mean, in a lot of countries, it shows how mainly far-right parties have been gaining momentum. We see it in France, but also in other countries, such as the Netherlands, for example, Italy, of course.
But also
Can
in
I-
Greece, the far right has been
Yeah.
gaining momentum. I mean, yeah, we had a decline when the Golden Dawn was criminalized as a terrorist organization. Uh, I think that now in this parliament we have, I think, three different parties
Mhm.
that there are far right with like 5% each.
and this is the fortunate part, I
Yeah.
would say,
Mhm.
because contrary to the French example, we have very not serious, I would say. They cannot appeal to the average voter. It's they have a very anti-establishment rhetoric.
Mhm.
One of it is very clero-fascist, I would say, because, and people, even people that are against LGBTI equality,
They cannot relate.
yes, they
Yeah,
cannot
but 15%
relate.
can relate. The 50% is not
Yes,
exactly.
and they cannot, and they don't have a single leader around whom they can
Yeah, don't give them ideas.
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, Yanis, as the president of ELMA, do you think that maybe there's not enough representation, well, not representation, but there's not enough information about the EU elections for people, and that's why maybe that's something that could be changed so that people are more.
I think, first of all, I don't have a very clear view in all of the European countries, but what I know of is that there is the knowledge that there will be European
Mhm.
elections. This knowledge is there. And What I think is lacking is the importance of it. Kind of why should people go and vote in the European elections? This is what's missing, the missing link. The general, let's say, information is there, but the more um, not established information. This information is not personalized in a way of why it would be important for LGBTQI individuals to go and vote. This is what for me is missing in many countries, certainly in Greece.
And at this point, we should also point out the responsibility of the politicians and the campaigners that they bring about domestic issues rather than European issues, because it's for them it's just another, electoral
It's another
campaign.
election.
Yeah, so it's basically exactly what we are trying with the QueerYourEU campaign and report is to try to bring the knowledge of what the EU is doing for LGBTIQ plus people and why LGBTIQ plus people should go and vote, because it's very important to have a European Parliament that will be supporting our rights. How do you feel? Yeah, what is your feeling about what will happen in June? Do you think, like, because the polls right now are seeing an increase of far-right parties, is it the situation in Greece? You said like they are divided, but what is your impression, and from what do you expect from the EU in the next 5 years?
Connecting it with a previous question that you asked, it's like I think it's not only the responsibility of the politicians, as Apostolis said, but of the EU Parliament itself on why it is important. Because even the language that the EU in its main communication uses, it does not appeal to, well, not only to LGBTQI plus people, but also to younger people. And I'm 14, doesn't actually appeal even to me. It's like it's something distant, more political, that in a way, in terms of language or in terms of the images that I see and I mean, I own media. It's something foreign in a way. Okay, so keeping that in mind, going to this question, since the condition that I understand is that many people who could change the feeling that we have that the far right is rising are not interested and are not going to probably participate in the voting or participate, but not as many as we would like. The feeling that I get is exactly what you said, that we'll probably have a similar condition to the previous one, maybe with a rise of the far right. That's that's what I think. Well, let's hope that what I perceive is not 100% accurate.
And I think they also some of the parties or the officials of the party, they are afraid of the same. Also, in light of the recent marriage equality law, not least because the government who brought it comes from the conservative background. They are affiliated with European People's Party, so they are afraid of losing voters to the right. And because it's European elections and we don't have the stake of non-governmentability, maybe there will be some shifts there. Of course, the seats are less, so we hope that, every party has to reach a higher percentage in order to get a seat. Yeah. However, part of this story is also EuroPride, and I'm bringing it back in the discussion because, irrespective of the result, we need to show that that civil society is alert. We don't allow regression of our achievements of what we have got and achieved so far, and we are always there to give an empowering message of, we stand up against discrimination, irrespective of the result. And
Just last remark on that. What I just thought is that based on everything that we've discussed, what I'm thinking is that the civil society and society in general, in that case, is not actually represented, is not the results on an EU level um, do not represent the civil society reality,
Mhm.
which is a shame.
and it's this partially due to the voting system, because now in Greece we have open list. So that means that parties are encouraged to have popular candidates, and Greece is one single constituency for European elections, so they need to be really popular, really like stars, and attract many voters. In the past, when we had closed list, the party uh, leaders picked really nice people that were active in their fields, were much more connected with the movements, etc. So we might need to reconsider this.
I also had one last question. Is there a way, do you think, to appeal more to the younger people to go vote, specifically in Greece, so that we can maybe get away from this far-right hypothesis and maybe situation?
We need to learn from the past. Uh, a few days ago, I listened to a very nice example, like don't uh, um, don't do what the British youth did at the Brexit referendum. Next day they woke up and they had their rights infringed. They had much less opportunities, and they couldn't do anything about it anymore because it was too late. So don't leave it for the next day. Be mobilized and take the fate in your hands.
Um, I'd say try and learn not only from the past, but also actually, okay, not very sophisticated, but anyway, uh, from the present, and actually, this is going to the politicians and the EU in general, actually try and listen. Uh, it's not, I mean, it's not a big deal to try and listen on what uh, young people are concerned with, or how they talk, or how do they communicate with each other, which platforms are they using, what language are they using, what we are using as well. It's like uh, try and make, let's say, the reality of the people to be relevant to the calling of voting in a way, not something so distant, uh, so wooden, so carved in stone. Even I mean, from my understanding, even to me, some parts are so foreign and a bit even ancient in a way. It's like don't touch, and I don't believe it's so difficult to do it. I mean, really, l- just listening and actually listening is not so difficult. And I go again to what I said right at the beginning. But in order to do so, in order to be able to listen, you have at a moment to decide to shut up because otherwise you can't listen.
This applies very much to our work as well, because we have politicians primarily, but also other stakeholders. Uh, Usually we get the attitude, I support you and listen to me. I know what is best for you, which is like weird, and it's not what we want. We don't expect that candidates know everything about our needs, but we expect that they have an open ear and open heart to what we need, and not dictate our needs to us.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
We thank you very
It's a
much.
really
It was a
nice
pleasure.
discussion.
Thank you.
And
We enjoyed the discussion very much.
Thank you, and
thank you.
see you in the next episode, Lisa.